Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Morning, members. House is now in session. Sumner, you ready? Good. Okay. Members, the minutes of the 20th of September have been circulated. Are there any amendments required? There are none. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker? The following announcements. The following members have indicated their absence today. The Minister Kim Wilson, MP Susan Jackson, and MP Scott Pearman. Also, members, I'd like to take the opportunity to name the Joint Select Committee that's been formed to look into the cyber attack that took place on government. The committee will be chaired by MP Lawrence Scott, members MP Scott Simmons, MP Anthony Richardson, MP Robert King, and Senator Dwayne Robertson. I should note that the committee will have the ability to govern itself under Section 29 of the Parliamentary Act, Part 4. Thank you, members. Messengers from Senate? There are none. Papers and other communications? There are 2 papers this morning. The Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the report entitled The Premier's European Union Visit, 5th to 11th September 2024.
Thank you. Second paper this morning is the name of Minister Caesar. Minister?
Good morning. Morning, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly, the Office of Project Management and Procurement Annual Report for the year ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Petitions? There are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. We have 5 statements this morning. The first is in the name of the Premier. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, following my statement last week where I announced a $25 million investment package focused primarily on social and community programs, I rise today to provide this Honorable House an update on the government's fiscal performance. Mr. Speaker, we will debate that investment package later today. However, it is important that this Honorable House and the people of Bermuda understand the context by which that investment can be funded. This government has, since it was elected in 2017, been focused on fiscal responsibility, which has led Bermuda to a balanced budget despite the hand we were dealt with the bad deals inherited by the former government, which cost Bermuda's taxpayers $250 million. Notwithstanding, we steered our island through a once-in-a-century pandemic and have successfully implemented Bermuda's economic recovery plan, which has seen economic growth accelerate, combined with low unemployment rates not seen in Bermuda since the 1980s. This strong economic and employment growth, combined with payroll tax reform that reduced payroll taxes on workers to the lowest level in history, while providing a tax cut to 86% of workers and every local business, has benefited the public purse. Mr. Speaker, before I give an update on the current fiscal year 2024-25, I wish to share the updated fiscal results from last fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Speaker, based on the work to date on the 2023-24 Consolidated Fund financial statements, as the Ministry of Finance prepares to submit these statements for the annual audit, I can share the following good news of the government's improving fiscal picture. Government revenues are now projected to be $1.19 billion, $31.4 million, or 2.7% above the original estimate of $1.15 billion. This increase in revenue is due to better than expected payroll tax receipts. Current account expenditures are now projected to be $980 million, $7.3 million above the original estimate of $972.6 million. This was achieved despite unbudgeted items such as the $16.3 million to support the hospital and negotiated pay awards for public officers and teachers. Capital account expenditures are projected to be $98.2 million, $2.2 million above the original estimate of $96 million. These expenditures include a $2.9 million deposit for the purchase of 2 new ferries, $6.1 million for new electric buses, $8.3 million for stabilization works at the Tynes Bay Waste Energy Facility, $4.8 million for a new asphalt plant, and $4.3 million in grant funding to the Bermuda Housing Corporation to provide more affordable housing. Interest and guarantee management costs are projected to be $130.6 million, a minor increase above the original estimate of $130.4 million. Guarantee management fees totaled $1.3 million in 23-24. The decrease in interest costs is directly related to the repayment of $50 million of government debt in December 2023. Mr. Speaker, because of this government's prudent management and economic stewardship, the 2023-24 budget deficit is now projected to be $21.8 million, which is $21.7 million or 50% less than the original estimate of $43.5 million. The figures that I just mentioned highlights the result of the successful execution of Bermuda's economic recovery plan, which has seen government revenues increase, economic growth that has exceeded expectations, and continued strong growth in international business. Mr. Speaker, I will now speak to the current fiscal year 2024-25. Last Friday, I tabled a supplementary estimate in this honorable House. The key areas of the supplementary estimate focused on social investment include investment in public safety, enhancing support for mental health and community services, additional resources for educators and social workers, and investing in additional care options for our seniors. This investment package totals $25 million for the 2024-25 budget year. Mr. Speaker, based on the performance over the first 5 months of the fiscal year, I will now share the updated projections for the Consolidated Fund. Government revenues are now projected to be $1.26 billion, $30 million or 2.3% above the original estimate of $1.23 billion. The projected revenue figure represents continued economic recovery, evidenced by increases in payroll tax and tourism-related revenue, and takes into account a $10 million reduction in expected customs duty due to the 60% cut in energy taxes to reduce the impact of energy price hikes. Current account expenditures are now projected to be $1 billion, $17.6 million above the original estimate of $992 million. This increase is solely due to the additional investments contained in the supplemental investment package announced last week. Capital accounts expenditures are now projected to be $119.8 million, $7.3 million above the original estimate of $112.3 million. The additional expenditures include investments in infrastructure, public spaces, community spaces, and phase 1 of a seniors daycare facility, which are part of the supplementary investment package. Interest and guarantee management costs are projected to remain on budget at $127.8 million. Mr. Speaker, in February in this Honorable House, this government tabled a budget that was projected to deliver Bermuda's first balanced budget in 21 years. Today, I am humbled to announce that despite a $10 million reduction in energy taxes to assist Bermudians, combined with a $25 million additional investment package focused on social investment, this government is not just on track to deliver a balanced budget this year. The most recent estimates from the Ministry of Finance indicate that the budget surplus is now projected to increase to $4 million. Mr. Speaker, please let me recap. This PLP government cut payroll taxes for 86% of Bermuda's workers and every local business, a move opposed by the One Bermuda Alliance. This PLP government cut energy taxes by 60% after the former OBA government doubled energy taxes on hard-working Bermudians. This PLP government has advanced the single largest increase in social investment in 20 years, while the One Bermuda Alliance speaks about reducing government spending, which will negatively impact young people, hurt working-class families, and reduce support for the vulnerable and our seniors. And, Mr. Speakers, despite the naysayers, both inside and outside of this Honorable House, this PLP government will deliver Bermuda's first budget surplus in 21 years. Mr. Speaker, the financial record is clear for all Bermudians to see. There is only one party in this Honorable House that has delivered tax fairness for workers. There is only one party in this House that has reduced taxes on essential goods and energy. And there is only one party in this House that is rebuilding Bermuda with Bermudians at heart. And, may I add, Mr. Speaker, with a budget surplus. And that party, Mr. Speaker, is this Bermuda Progressive Labor Party government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Premier. Did you have a second statement? Would you like to present that now?
It's not as exciting as the first, but I can.
No, you can go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I give this statement as Premier with the as Minister responsible for the public service, and on behalf of the head of the public service, I deliver this statement. May I proceed, Mr. Speaker?
Right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to present to this Honorable House the Public Service Strategic Plan for the period 2024-2027. And, Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of honorable members, I will table this plan, which was shared in the public earlier this month. Honorable members will recall that the earlier government reform plan for the period 2019 to 2023 was tabled in this Honorable House on the 1st of March, 2019. Mr. Speaker, this new public service strategy transitions to an operational plan to improve and enhance the delivery of government services, which builds upon the foundation laid by the government reform plan. It recognizes the significant strides made in enhancing the service's capacity and capabilities through initiatives such as the Digital Forms Public Service Excellence Awards and Leadership Program. Mr. Speaker, the development process and timeline of the strategic plan highlight comprehensive and inclusive planning. It began with a situational analysis, identifying performance gaps, and deciding what elements from the earlier reform plan should be carried over. A thorough review of strengths, opportunities, future aspirations, and results was also conducted. The actual strategy formulation was iterative and participatory. The collaborative effort across the service ensured a wide range of insights, contributed to setting up core values and formulating new goals, objectives, and actions, setting a solid foundation for future aspirations and results. Mr. Speaker, the resultant Public Service Strategic Plan sets out the operational priorities for the public service and the actions that will be driven from now to 2027. This plan aims to ensure that the public service is well positioned to deliver on the government's strategic priorities and sets out a strategic framework to enhance the business operations of the public service. It contributes to strive for a vision of a future-forward government for the people of Bermuda by focusing on its mission to enhance the lives of the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the public service commits to the core values of customer-centric, being user-friendly and putting our customers' needs front and center. Future focus, by being agile and innovative and making decisions based on data. And promoting prosperity by promoting economic and environmental sustainability in the public service and Bermuda. These principles will serve as a compass, guiding every decision and action towards the goal of a forward-thinking and prosperous society. By committing to these values in all aspects of operations, the public service will demonstrate a steadfast dedication to fostering a government that not only meets the current needs of its citizens, but also anticipates and shapes a thriving future. Mr. Speaker, the service will operationalize the strategy through a focus on 5 strategic goals as follows: acting strategically, being customer-centric, putting people first, affecting digital transformation, and delivering excellence. Mr. Speaker, each goal is not just a statement of intent, but a commitment to action. It is the roadmap for the public service to follow as it looks to improve the lives of Bermudians. Mr. Speaker, the strategic plan is deliberate about joining the digital revolution. For the next period, a key focus is digital transformation, which is positioned as a catalyst to improve effectiveness and efficiency. The plan proposes that digital transformation will help the public and employees alike by using technology to close resource gaps. Mr. Speaker, the Public Service Strategic Plan will be implemented over the next 3 years until December 2027. Action items will be incorporated into ministry and department business plans and in individual employee annual performance objectives. Activities will be funded from operational budgets. Communication will play a crucial role in the implementation process, and mechanisms are being put in place to ensure that all public officers are aware of administrative and public policy developments within the service. Mr. Speaker, to effectively measure progress and achievement within the public service, a robust monitoring and reporting system is essential. This system will hinge on key performance indicators such as the number of services successfully digitized, insights from annual employment feedback surveys, and data from customer satisfaction surveys. These metrics will provide a comprehensive overview of performance and areas for improvement. Progress and achievement will be continuously monitored through regular reporting within the public service. Customer satisfaction surveys will measure service user satisfaction. Public perception surveys will gauge public opinion of the public service overall. The number of new services digitized will be tracked, and employee feedback surveys will measure staff satisfaction and adoption of our mission and core values. Mr. Speaker, these measures will be coordinated by the Office of the Head of the Public Service and reported to the Cabinet, Public Service Executive, the leadership team, and to staff via individual departments and teams. Mr. Speaker, as we embark on the journey from 2024 to 2027, the outcomes of the Public Service Strategic Plan are eagerly anticipated. I look forward to sharing with this Honorable House and Honorable Members updates on the achievement of the goals, particularly those related to service delivery. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I'd like to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of public officers, providing essential services that add value to the community. The collaborative efforts of all involved are crucial for the successful execution of that plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker,
Good morning.
I rise to report on one of the most pressing challenges we as a country face, the shortage of affordable housing. In keeping with our pledge to the people of Bermuda, this government has invested record sums into increasing the island's housing stock. Next month marks 2 years since I stood in this Honorable House to announce the residential building program under the Bermuda Housing Corporation, a $21 million investment over 3 years that will see the refurbishment of 167 older units owned by the BHC. $15 million of that commitment has been spent thus far, and the remainder will be provided in the final tranche in next year's budget. Mr. Speaker, There's been some confusion surrounding the number of units and the progress we have been making in getting them renovated. So I'll take a moment to clarify. The Bermuda Housing Corporation has a total of 710 units in its stock. This number will increase as we add to the private sector rental program, build or purchase new units. Included in this figure, though, is this 167 units that are to be renovated, 101 occupied and 66 vacant and derelict that I have announced previously. To date, 68 of those units have been completed, 38 from the occupied list and 30 from the vacant and derelict. And yes, the 30 vacant apartments are now being used to house Bermudian families that were in need of affordable housing. Nonetheless, this leaves 99 units in various stages of progress. Mr. Speaker, the 68 units completed thus far comprise of 11 studio units, 13 one-bedroom units, 7 two-bedroom units, 7 three-bedroom units, and 3 four-bedroom units. Of the 99 units remaining, Mr. Speaker, the next cohort of projects totaling 31 brand new units are underway, either under construction or awaiting building permits. They consist of the following: Harmony Terrace East in Paget, 12 units; 18 Battery Road, St. David's, 12 units; Chelsea Apartments, St. George's, 5 units; and Middletown Terrace, Pembroke, 2 units. The remaining 68 units are in various stages of the planning process and will be advanced as the building permits are received. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before, whilst there is more to be done, tangible progress is being made. But this is why units under the residential housing program are not the only effort to expand the affordable rental options for Bermudians. Mr. Speaker, honorable members may recall the BHC's private sector rental program, to which an additional $10 million was provided this financial year. This program provides for privately owned units to be rented to the Bermuda Housing Corporation with guaranteed rent and intervention by the corporation when tenants do not honor this commitment. The rates are less than the market rates, but the rent is guaranteed to be paid on time and the unit returned to its original state at the conclusion of the BHC tenancy. In October 2023, I indicated that the BHC will expand this program in keeping with its commitment to the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago on September 12th, the BHC announced a partnership with the Leopards Club International to transform their vacant 3-story building into 13 affordable housing units. As many of you may know, Mr. Speaker, it was January 27, 2007, some 17 years ago, when that structure caught fire, and it has remained vacant ever since. Therefore, the BHC viewed this as another opportunity to boost our housing stock. The total cost of this renovation is estimated at $4.8 million, and the project is expected to take 22 months to complete. The government will recoup its investment through rental income generated from these new homes over the next several years. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the private sector rental program, the BHC project team continues its efforts in negotiating successful agreements with homeowners for 21 additional private units. This program provides funding for renovation to private sector units that are then placed in the BHC rental stock for a set period to recoup the investment. Agreements are made on an individual basis that includes BHC receiving the entire rental income or a portion of the rental income, the latter resulting in a longer period for the unit to remain in the BHC rental stock. I would now like to move quickly from rentals to home ownership, Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of reiterating this government's commitment to ensure that every Bermudian has the opportunity to own a piece of the rock. In 2017, the Bermuda Housing Corporation Home Start program was launched and remains available to Bermudians who have never owned a home, and are looking to obtain first-time home ownership. Mr. Speaker, this program is a partnership between the Bermuda Housing Corporation and Clarion Bank. The details can be found on the BHC website at www.bhc.pm/homestar. Mr. Speaker, this program is proving incredibly popular, and as I have said before, we are looking to expand the program to other financial institutions. Since its launch, this program has assisted 34 Bermudian families in their quest to become first-time homeowners. Previously, I mentioned that 4 families were in the final stages with the financial institution to obtaining their new homes. I'm now happy to say that this number has increased to 6. Mr. Speaker, this government is singularly committed to providing adequate housing options for all Bermudians. And while it appears that the progress might be slow, we press on. And I encourage any member of this community who wishes to become involved in this quest by offering private sector units to contact either myself or the Bermuda Housing Corporation. I shall continue to provide regular updates on our progress. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Bermuda Housing Corporation Board, ably led by MP Chris Famous, management ably led by Mr. Paul Martin, and all staff for the hard work they continue to do to further deliver on the BHC's mandate of providing affordable housing to Bermudians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Education. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to update this House and the listening public on our education reform efforts, specifically regarding the demonstrable progress that we are making with the design and implementation of parish primary schools and what's next for transforming our public education system. Mr. Speaker, before I go into the specifics of our education reform agenda, I am pleased to report that despite a challenging summer for children and families across the island, the school has started with minimal interruptions. The tragic loss of recent graduates and current students who are part of the BPSS family over the summer has been deeply felt. In response, schools were given an opportunity to design back-to-school programs tailored to the needs of their school communities. These programs focused on providing a supportive and nurturing environment to set a positive tone for the year ahead. This was made possible by classrooms and school buildings that were well prepared to receive educators and students, thanks to work completed over the summer. For this, Mr. Speaker, I extend my deepest appreciation for everyone involved. Mr. Speaker, since my last ministerial statement, we have made significant progress in our transition from a 3-tier to a 2-tier education system. This includes phasing out middle schools and establishing parish primary and signature senior schools. The government remains steadfast in our belief that parish primary schools are the key to mobilizing community strengths and resources to support our students in achieving the best possible life and learning outcomes. Mr. Speaker, the opening of parish schools in Hamilton Parish at the Francis Patton primary site and in Warwick Parish at the Purvis primary site in September 2023 marked a major milestone in the education reform journey. This year, the introduction of Year 8 students signifies our commitment to phasing out middle schools and expanding parish primary schools to include years 1 through 8. While this isn't the end of the process, it represents significant and observable progress. Mr. Speaker, one of the key achievements at the parish primary level is the implementation of the dual language program at Purvis, alongside new learning environments at both Purvis and Francis Patton. This summer, Purvis teachers, Acting Principal Enid Ferbert-Jacobs and Ms. Luann Wainwright, the Education Reform Unit School Transformation Lead, traveled to the UK for professional development at the bilingual primary school in Brighton and Hove. During this immersive experience, they worked on curriculum development, teaching strategies, and creating effective learning environments. They also gained valuable insights from staff who support diverse learners and interacted with the student council to better understand bilingual learning. Acting Principal Ferbert-Jacobs noted, quote, The most impactful experience was seeing how seamlessly language and culture were integrated into the curriculum, reinforcing the effectiveness of our approach to second language learning through content instruction. The teachers shared their insights with the Purvis staff before the school year started, supporting the continued growth of the dual language program. Mr. Speaker, as I stated in the press release, the journey by Purvis primary educators underscores our commitment to education reform. These experiences will strengthen our dual language program and prepare students for a multicultural, multilingual world. Mr. Speaker, last week during the motion to adjourn, MP Keynes shared the story of a parent transferring their child into the public system to access this program. Stories like this, along with the positive results from the year one pilot cohort, show promising signs. Students are excelling in both Spanish and English, demonstrating that we are fostering a lifelong love of learning, of language learning, cultural appreciation, and critical skills needed for the success in an increasingly globalized world. Mr. Speaker, in May, I announced that plans were underway to expand classroom spaces at both parish primary schools as they grow to accommodate 2 classes per year from year 1 to year 8. I'm pleased to report that the new classrooms for year 2 at Francis Patton, as well as new classrooms for year 7 and 8 students at Purvis, were completed and ready to start the school term. These classrooms have been designed to furnish to support flexible, high-quality teaching and learning, tailored to meet the needs of individual and group learners. Students are thriving in these new environments, teachers are embracing them, and parents are pleased to see their children learning in modern, well-equipped spaces. Mr. Speaker, we continue to see steady progress at both schools, and I'm excited to report that additional parish primary schools will begin phasing in as of September 2025 at the Elliott Primary and Harrington Sound Primary sites. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to our next steps for signature schooling. In September 2025, we will open our 3rd signature school at the Sands Secondary Middle School site, offering hospitality and tourism, as well as educational services, signature learning programs. As with all our signature learning programs, success depends on strengthening partnerships between the Bermuda Public School System, government agencies, and businesses and community partners. I'm pleased to announce that learning partner memorandums of understanding have been signed with Cambridge Beaches and the Bermuda Tourism Authority. We look forward to working with these partners to develop opportunities for students to develop the skills and knowledge needed to follow their passions and achieve their career goals. Mr. Speaker, September 2025 also marks a milestone when senior schooling becomes a 5-year program. This will coincide with the final cohort of current 4-year senior school program students. As a result, in September 2025, both year 8/M2 and M3 students will transition to senior school. In the coming weeks, meetings will be held between parents and school counselors to help students and families make informed senior school decisions. Mr. Speaker, starting this year as part of our education reform process, students transitioning into senior school will receive uniform vouchers. This year, the initiative is specifically designed to support the double cohort of students affected by this transition. However, going forward, the Ministry of Education will continue this program annually, providing $100 uniform vouchers to parents when they attend the senior school counseling sessions. Uniform vouchers will also be made available for students transitioning from primary schools when they close. Mr. Speaker, in March, I announced the closure of Prospect Primary School and Gilbert Institute at the end of this academic year. The transitions for both schools continue to be handled with care by their respective principals. I committed to providing further updates during term 1, and we will meet that deadline. Invitations will be sent in the coming weeks for information sessions at each school. It is essential, Mr. Speaker, that as many members of our Bermuda Public School System family as possible attend these sessions, as they will share important information about school openings, closures, and transition timelines. I'm also pleased that our school principals specifically requested input on how these sessions should be structured, as they know best how to engage with their school families. These sessions and how they will happen will be a result of the collaboration between the Education Reform Unit and the principals. Mr. Speaker, you'll continue to hear me say in this House and in other forums that Bermuda's children are Bermuda's future. We certainly must celebrate the progress we are making. We also must be honest about the challenges we face. In some areas, long-standing practices and customs have slowed our progress, preventing us from moving as quickly as we would like. These issues are real, and we are actively addressing them, but in a collaborative way to ensure all voices are continuously heard and considered. However, Mr. Speaker, we remain steadfast in our commitment to reforming our education system for the sake of our children. We will continue to push forward, working through the obstacles, because ensuring that every child and young person in Bermuda receives a quality education is not just our goal, it is our duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Excuse me. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Transport. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to the future of transportation. Digital Fair Media, our Shorelink, is revolutionizing how we navigate our island, making travel smarter, faster, and more convenient. Together, we are shaping a seamless, efficient, and sustainable journey that empowers everyone to move with ease. Mr. Speaker, it has now been 11 weeks since the introduction of digital fare media for public transportation across Bermuda, including both ferries and buses. This new system marks a significant shift in how passengers access and pay for public transportation services, streamlining the entire process for greater efficiency and convenience. Since its launch, commuters have had the opportunity to experience a more modern, seamless way of purchasing and using ferries, eliminating the need for physical fares such as cash. This digital transformation improves accessibility, reduces wait times, and enhances the overall customer experience for Bermuda's public transit users. Mr. Speaker, by way of background, in the 2023 Bermuda Government Throne Speech, we pledged to introduce digital fare media as part of our efforts to modernize the public transportation system. The goal of this initiative was to enhance efficiency, improve users' experience, and align Bermuda's transit service with global technological trends. As I stated previously, I'm extremely pleased that we have successfully fulfilled this commitment. Mr. Speaker, Phase 1 launched on July 8th, 2024, introducing several key features to enhance the travel experience. Passengers are able to conveniently purchase fare through a mobile app. Once purchased, they can easily board buses or ferries by showing their digital tickets to the operator. The operator can verify the type of fare, whether it's adult, child, or specific zone fare, by the signal displayed on the passenger screen. Mr. Speaker, I would like to reiterate, since the transition to digital fare media is being implemented in phases, the option to purchase and use traditional fares will remain available throughout this process. Mr. Speaker, as with any large-scale project rollout, we have faced a few hurdles along the way. The transition process presented several challenges, one of which was that some pages on the app of the system were displayed in French. This issue stemmed from the company's base operations being in France. However, this was swiftly addressed and rectified. Another challenge occurred briefly when purchase tickets were not accessible within the app. Thankfully, this glitch was quickly resolved and is no longer an issue. Undertaking a transition of this magnitude is really without its difficulties. However, the team has consistently demonstrated a steadfast commitment to providing exceptional customer service. They remain focused on resolving any obstacles that arise, ensuring that customers' experience is both seamless and satisfactory. Their dedication to quality and responsiveness reflects their strong ethos and commitment to excellence. Mr. Speaker, to ensure we were fully prepared, we have established a call center with sufficient staff on standby to provide support if needed. Initially, the center operated from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. to align with the public transportation service hours, allowing customers to reach out during their commutes. After approximately 2 weeks, based on the low volume of calls, we adjusted the hours to 8 a.m. from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This shift was a clear reflection of the successful implementation of the digital fare media, despite some initial challenges. 2 weeks later, the hours were further reduced to from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., again demonstrating the reduced demand for support and continued success of the rollout. We began with a team of 5 staff members covering an 18-hour period, but have since streamlined operation to 2 staff members covering an 8-hour period. Additionally, we deployed 3 field agents to provide in-person assistance to customers when necessary. This transition and scaling down of resources highlighted the smooth integration of the new system and its overall effectiveness. Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive data collection mechanism enables our team to closely monitor the system's performance and progress. The key data points being tracked include the following: total number of users, number of fare validations or uses of fares, quantity of products sold, including tickets, tokens, and passes, etc. Total revenue generated from sales. Mr. Speaker, the trajectory of our progress with the digital fare media initiatives is very promising. For instance, in the first week following the launch, we sold 1,135 products. By the end of August, this figure nearly doubled to almost 2,000 products sold in the last week of the month. The dollar value of products sold also saw significant growth, with revenue reaching $8,700 in the first week and climbing to $14,700 by the end of August. The excitement surrounding this new platform attracted approximately 1,000 new users during the initial week, and by the end of August, we have seen an average influx of 500 to 700 new users each week, totaling over 5,000 users at the end of August. Revenue collection for the first week, as I said, mentioned $8,700, while total revenue generated since the inception of the platform has reached $109,000. In terms of fare validations, we started with 858 validations in the launch week. By the end of August, we had reached 4,200 validations per week, representing a remarkable increase in fare usage. This data not only highlights the initial success of the digital fare media system, but also underscores the growing acceptance and reliance on this innovative platform among our users. Mr. Speaker, following the completion of Phase 1, which enabled passengers to purchase tickets via a mobile app, Phase 2 and 3 will introduce a host of new features. Real-time information for passengers, the option to pay with credit and debit cards, contactless transportation passes that replace all existing passes, including those for seniors, children, and individuals with special needs. The ability to purchase digital tickets featuring machine-readable QR codes. The implementation of a validator system on buses and fares. The real-time passenger information system will allow users to track the location of buses and ferries directly on their mobile devices throughout Bermuda. Commuters can view a map of Bermuda on the app, giving them a visual representation of the bus or ferry's location and enabling them to monitor its movement as it approaches. Validators, which are compact devices, will be installed on every bus and ferry in the public fleet. Upon boarding, passengers will simply need to tap the phone, debit or credit card, contactless transportation pass, or digital ticket on the validator to confirm their fare payment. The ability to use credit and debit cards will streamline the boarding process, allowing passengers to select their desired fare zone, whether it's 3-zone or 14 fare, and indicate whether they are purchasing a ticket for a child or an adult. Additionally, passengers can easily purchase tickets for multiple individuals, such as a family and friends when traveling together. Seniors, children, and individuals with special needs will have the convenience of purchasing their passes through the mobile app. For those without access to smartphones, a physical contactless pass will still be available, ensuring seamless boarding on buses and ferries. Phase 2 and 3 are scheduled to be launched towards the end of 2024 calendar year. Mr. Speaker, building on this success, we are excited to move forward with Phase 2 and 3. With these upcoming enhancements, we are confident that we will further improve users' experience, accessibility, and overall efficiency within the public transportation system, solidifying our commitment to providing a modern and user-friendly service for all Bermuda residents and visitors. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to an end of the statements this morning by ministers and junior ministers. We will now move on. The next item are reports of committees. There are none. It takes us to the question period. This morning, members, we actually have some written questions that did not require an oral response. So as I start, I'm going to ask to confirm that the written responses have been received. And 1 second. The questions were put by MP Jackson. I believe the opposition whip is standing for today. Opposition whip? Are you standing in for it? Have you received the written questions? Thank you. You have received them. Thank you.
You received it.
So we'll now move on to the questions from the statements today, and there are none. So, members, there are no statements this morning, no questions this morning. So there are no, the written questions are asked. The responses have been received by the opposition spokesman, and no questions from statements. So we'll move on. The next item on the order paper are congratulatory and obituary speeches. Would any member wish to make a contribution? MP Lister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Good morning to the listening audience, to fellow colleagues. Mr. Speaker, as I said last week, I'm still trying to conquer this daunting task of catching up with recognizing those over the period we were not in session that have done things that I would like to highlight. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by sending congratulations to Mr. Ryan Otterbridge of Franklin Pierce University, who won the Ron Willett Invitational for his school in the 5,000 meters cross country. Also to Mr. Sebastian Kemp, who won the silver medal at the ILCA UK Open and National Championships in England in the under 21 men's division. Also to Mr. Scott Barnes, who finished third in the Extreme Rock Island Grand Prix in karting. And Mr. Speaker, I'd now like to recognize two other Bermudians without sporting accomplishments, but just for what they've done. Mr. Speaker, young Mr. Remy Donowa, who during this summer at 17 years old earned his pilot license. It was a dream that he had set out to accomplish from young, and so I want to congratulate him for achieving that dream of getting his pilot license at a young age. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, to Miss Jody Coddington, a former schoolmate of mine who was recognized in America as one of the chosen 100 top small businesses for her business brand development group. So, Mr. Speaker, whether in sports or in other areas, I always like to recognize Bermudians that are representing us well and achieving accomplishments here and overseas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Does any other member, MP Fogo, you rose before anyone else? You have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the House and people of Bermuda. Yes, I would like condolences to be recognized for the Niren family. We recently lost Mr. Niren down there in St. David's, who I guess you can say was he's a St. George's man, but he was a patriarch for the community. Well-loved, kind person, and he will be sorely missed by both St. David's and his family. I would also like to recognize Mr. Collington. Mr. Collington reached the ripe old age of 102. He definitely was a patriarch in St. David's. He was a man who stayed fit, never drank, never smoked, raised his sons, his children well, and was well loved. In fact, on his 100th birthday, I can say many people came out to celebrate him, including our premier. We did a drive-by. We stayed down there in St. David's, and we celebrated him having reached that ripe old age of 100, that so few of us get there. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I wouldn't be able to walk in St. David's if I didn't stand up here today and recognize his loss and the condolences to the family. And so, Mr. Speaker, I hope this House sees fit to ensure that a letter gets sent out to his family for his service as a Bermudian and for what he meant to the community of St. David's.
Thank you, MP Fogo. Any other MP? MP Ming, you're on your feet quickly this morning. MP Ming,
Good
you have
morning,
your
Mr.
3
Speaker
minutes.
and listening audience. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I don't know if this was done last week, but if not, for Devon Signor, and it was not. Yes, okay. Well, I'm gonna be associated with this comments for, and I'd like to associate MP Figure and MP Swan for 1E, 1 Done, 1E, who is sadly missed in St. George's at this time. I'd also like to be send thoughts and prayers to the family of Elsie Crane, because anybody who knows PLP and Wellington Back Road, especially for constituency number 2, if you didn't get the approval of Miss Crane, you weren't happening. So I'm being associated with these comments as well. And on a my sadder note, Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to associate MP Figure and MP Swan. It's the passing of Dr. Erskine Simmons. He was associate the entire house with his comments. Mr. Speaker, he lived in constituency number 1, and he had been down there for some time because we, even as young people, had gotten to know him. But I think the true word of knowing someone and knowing someone probably wasn't until his story was told. And I think that is a story that we all know. And if we don't, we should. He was actually a giant for his time. And for me, he will be that truly a legend for the things that he did and how he stood up for us as Black people in this country. He was fearless, but he was also content in teaching others about what he went through. When he moved to St. George's, I think it was 27 years ago now, he sought to learn the history of St. George's. And the question sometimes is asked about why the importance of a UNESCO or a heritage site. If you ever had a conversation with Dr. Simmons, you would understand the why, because he would give you the history from the start to the finish. He also let us know that there was no port, excuse me, in Bermuda other than the one in St. George's. So everybody who came through that port. I joke about it because I always say that to Somerset people, you started in St. George's. So, and so for that, Mr. Speaker, he will be sadly missed, but he'll also be remembered. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to have say happy birthday to a constituent, Miss Gloria Lavrock. She's a resident up there at the Sylvia Richardson facility. She loves Mars Boss if anybody wants to go see her, but she celebrated 96 years young the other day. And for that, we are grateful, and her family is grateful that she is still with them today, and she does have her faculties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP Ming. Premier, everybody's jumping before you this morning. You're moving slow today, you know. All right. But I'll take you being you're still on your feet, Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will now be associated with these remarks, but I would like to rise to ask this honorable House to send and extend heartfelt condolences, as was given by the member for constituency number 1, to the family of the late Reverend Dr. Erskine C. Simmons. As was stated, he was a tireless community servant and a product of the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Bermuda. Dr. Simmons dedicated his life to public service. As a youth leader, church founder, educator, a civic leader, he impacted countless lives. Most notably, he was a member of the Progressive Group, whose work played a key role in the fight for desegregation in Bermuda. And so on behalf of the government, Mr. Speaker, people of Bermuda, and certainly on behalf of this honorable House, I would ask that a letter be sent to offer sincere condolences to his daughters, grandchildren, and his entire family. And certainly, we will make sure that his legacy lives on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Any other member? Minister Weeks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a positive note. I would like this honorable House to acknowledge the contributions of Mr. Desmond Crockwell. He had a Live for Peace event organized in the Pembroke area, which encompasses C21, C16, C15, it was to acknowledge the tragedy of Miss Nicole Parfit and her two children, Navi and Trim Parfit. It was well attended, Mr. Speaker, and it was they were accompanied by the Somerset Village Gum Bears. So I just want to acknowledge the work that Mr. Desmond Crockwood does throughout the island on having different events and trying to do his part in getting the community to acknowledge and to help in their own way to stop the violence. Mr. Speaker, on another positive note, before I take my seat, it's remiss of me not to mention one of Danny Tan's own, Naki Wiles, who is still over there in England doing his thing. He just recently scored the winning goal for Bristol City over Oxford United. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. MP Simmons Wade, you have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and listening audience. First, I'd like to extend my condolences to Janet Penny Cook, to her husband, George, and her children, Monique and George, and also the Tannick family. Penny was a wife, a mother, and a sister. She was also a nurse who was very, very committed to our seniors, and she also was an administrator for long-term care. For anyone who knows Penny, she was extremely glamorous and also well-dressed. But most importantly, she was a survivor. She was fortunate enough to have had a kidney donated by her daughter after she was diagnosed with kidney disease, and she survived, I would say, maybe 10 or 12 years as a result of it. Also, which I do every week, I would also like to acknowledge all of my constituents who are over the age of 65. And I ask my fellow members to do so as well. It's always nice to more if you gave them birthday wishes. So I have Lisa Mathis, Dorothy Romeo, Edwin Tucker, Leon Summersole, and Hilda Gibbons. I've decided to say just over 65 instead of giving their age. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Is there any other Minister Herbert?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, representative of St. George's South, constituency 4. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I do want to give condolences, and I apologize if it's been mentioned already, to the family of Gaynell Otterbridge, who actually passed in August. Ms. Otterbridge is a Bayless Bay girl, Hamilton Parish girl. I want to give condolences to her family, particularly her daughters, Gaynell and Toy, and just wanting to recognize and acknowledge the family at this time. Mr. Speaker, I also want to give congratulations to the Friends of Hospice. Last evening, I had the opportunity to attend a breaking of the ground for a new site for hospice and palliative care, a new center that will be titled Woodland Grove Care Center. It will be the first of kind in Bermuda as far as palliative care and also elder care. So I want to congratulate the team of Friends of Hospice for their vision. It was definitely a visionary experience of what they envisioned this facility to be like for our country. If anyone has had anyone in their lives that has experienced terminal illness, and you've also had the opportunity to experience care in Agape House, you would note that the care is definitely a different experience than it is in other places, but it is definitely catered to make sure that someone is living their last or their end of days peacefully and very special. I also want to congratulate the organization Dementia Bermuda, who has recently rebranded and changed their name, which we would know as it being formerly Action on Alzheimer's and Dementia. They've recently rebranded to Dementia Bermuda, and congratulating also that organization for their vision and foresight for being able to support persons in Bermuda who are living with dementia. So congratulations to them for their vision for supporting dementia going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Junior Minister Swan, are you rising for 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right, it is.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be associated, as I appreciate the honorable member from constituency number 1 doing so also, but on the condolences to Wani Sigdor and Reverend Dr. Erskine Simmons, whose family are very iconic in the AME Church. And I was told by the deputy speaker, reminded that that famous St. Philip's AME Church, when it was located in Turkestan on Painters Road, was held by his grandfather was Solomon, was the actual pastor. I would like to have condolences sent to the family of Miss Agatha Pearman, who I'd like to associate the honorable member Terrell. Ms. Pearman was passed away, but her late husband was my dear friend Keith Pearman, the golfer, and also the golfing community has lost our friend Michael Tracy Tavares, and condolences to his wife Sylvia and his family. And while I'm on golfing family, let me say this: Kenneth Bremer, who you would know, Mr. Speaker, grew up with us from Dockyard. I would have known as a youngster from Dockyard, riding his bike very slowly through Somerset Down, through Scour to White Hill. But he later went on to become a well-recognized golf cart mechanic, working for both the Fairmont Southampton, then going to Ocean View, where he became a member of the Bermuda government golf courses team, where he recently retired, and unfortunately didn't live too much of his retirement out, Mr. Speaker, before he's passed on for his great reward. His family from the Dockyard areas, his brothers, sisters, the family that offer our condolences. His brother John also worked at Port Royal. Brother Stephen, I know, and others in his family. And may he rest in peace, Mr. Speaker.
Would any other member like to make a contribution at this time? Government Whip, Mr. Terrell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, we hear much noise of not so positive behavior from our youth, but today I'd like to give some showers. I use the word showers. Blessings to one of our young athletes in Bermuda. He's associated with the Pembroke Hamilton Club, which reside in Warwick, of course. And Mr. Speaker, I think you might be familiar with this person. His name is Ty C. Showers. So Ty Showers. These modern names, the way they spell them. So I would ask that the House send congratulations to him, Mr. Speaker. He, for the 5th time, has received the Pembroke Hamilton Club Foundation Scholar. So he's been a recipient for 5 times, I understand. He plays in the senior team and also volunteers coaching their under-13s. A very nice young man, because I have had the opportunity to meet him, and I ask that congratulations be sent to him. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? MP Anthony Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Speaker, to my colleagues and those in the listening audience. Mine are actually commendations, Mr. Speaker, and it is to probably 2 groups. The first I'll describe it as being the aviation family. Mr. Speaker, on occasion, persons are required to respond at short notice, and they do so, in my mind, with tremendous applause. And last night it happened. There was a flight that diverted to Bermuda close to midnight. And literally within about 10 minutes notice, we had to get everybody together. And I want to really commend everyone. That included the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service, the duty officer on duty, The East End hotels, we had to call them, and they were able to accommodate the persons, the crew, and the passengers. And not particularly, or not only, but I also want to commend two customs officers, Miss Pitcher and Miss Smith. They both rallied around and ensured that they were able to come on down and process the passengers. And what was a surprise is that when the passengers came off, they had pets with them, and they were even able to do what was necessary to ensure that the pets themselves could be landed into Bermuda. The second group, Mr. Speaker, is actually the Prospect Primary School, and I do commend them because today is actually World Tourism Day. And what the school has done is ask the young people to come on board and present or represent tourism in the way that they chose. And they had, as young people, they chose such diversity. One said that they will come on board as a taxi driver, somebody else as a hotelier, someone else as an airline steward, someone else as a gumby, and each of them were able to, or required rather, to justify or explain why they did what they did. And so I want to commend all of the staff, all of the students, and all the parents, because clearly it's a matter of ensuring that education becomes exciting. And once that takes hold, the children themselves are able to learn on a lifelong basis. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? Deputy Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to send condolences to the family of Ms. Rosin Woolridge. She was and I associate my cousin Kim Swan. She was the executive housekeeper at Castle Harbor, one of the first blacks to be, probably the first black at Castle Harbor to be the executive housekeeper. She'll be sorely missed by her children. I know one of them, John Woolridge, my cousin, one of my cousins, first cousins. She'll certainly be sorely missed by the entire family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Other member wish to make a contribution at this time? There are none other. Thank you, members. We will now move on along the order paper. And the next item on the order paper this morning is the matters of privilege. There are none. Personal explanations, there are none. Notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, there are none. Introduction of bills, there are none. Notice of motions, there are none. Members, that takes us to the orders of the day. And the first item under consideration this morning is the consideration of the contributory pensions amendment of benefits order 2024 in the name of the Minister of Finance and Premier. Would you like to start your matter?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that consideration be given to the draft order entitled the Contributory Pensions Amendment of Benefits Order 2024, proposed to be made by the Minister of Finance in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 37 of the Contributory Pensions Act 1970.
Are there any objections to that? There are none. Continue, Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the tabling of the Contributory Pensions Amendment of Benefits Order 2024 on September 20th reflects this government's resolute and unwavering commitment to improve the quality of life for our senior citizens. Mr. Speaker, the contribution our seniors have made to the country is immeasurable, and therefore this government continues to prioritize its 2017 election platform promise of increasing seniors' pensions by the rate of inflation every year. We recognize the hardships that many of our seniors now endure due to the rising cost of living, and we are committed to doing what we can to support them and ensure they lead the dignified lives that they deserve. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda provides retired individuals with a combination of a social insurance benefit from the Contributory Pension Fund and mandatory occupational pension from their employer. In a perfect world, the social insurance benefit should provide a first tier or basic pension, which a second tier or occupational pension would most likely supplement. Through no fault of their own, however, Mr. Speaker, a number of retired persons are not receiving an occupational pension and therefore relying on the social insurance benefit as their sole source of income. And of course, Mr. Speaker, that is because mandatory occupational pensions did not come into full place until 2003. Mr. Speaker, the situation could be better, and the government continues to do its utmost to ensure that seniors who rely heavily on their social insurance benefits are suitably cared for. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of the order is to increase pensions and other benefits under the Contributory Pensions Act 1970 by 2.4% as of August 16, 2024, when increases are typically made to the benefits every year in August. Per the government actuary, the 2.4% increase in benefits will represent a small impact to the overall status of the fund. Honorable members are advised that based on the CPI, the cost of living has increased by a further 2.4% since the last increase was granted. Therefore, the proposed benefit increase fully covers the prevailing rate of inflation to ensure that our seniors do not lose out. Mr. Speaker, there are 5 types of benefits payable under the Contributory Pensions Act 1970, and all the pensions and allowances will be increased by 2.4%. For the information of all members, the allowances are contributory old age pension, the contributory widows or widowers allowance, contributory disability benefit, non-contributory old age pension, and non-contributory disability benefit. Mr. Speaker, the current basic contributory pension is $1,152 per month. The maximum contributory pension currently payable, which includes additional increments added to the basic pension, is approximately $1,673 per month. Altogether, some 14,708 persons currently receive benefits under the Act. The proposed 2.4% increase will raise the basic contributory pension from $1,179 per month, and with additional increments, the maximum benefit will increase to approximately $1,713 per month, which is a $40 increase per month, or $480 additional per year. The retroactive pension payments for the 2.4% increase will be included in the October 15th, 2024 payment, dating back to August 16th, 2024, when this draft order is set to be effective. Thereafter, beneficiaries will expect to see the 2.4% increase reflected in their regular monthly payments on the 15th of every month going forward. Mr. Speaker, I am proud of the fact that this increase marks the 6th pension increase. Yes, Mr. Speaker, you heard correctly, the 6th increase that this Progressive Labor Party has implemented since its election in 2017. This stands in stark contrast to the former One Bermuda Alliance government, who made our seniors wait 5 years for a pension increase and told them that money does not grow on trees. As a reminder, Mr. Speaker, just a month after our election, in August 2017, this government increased pension benefits by 1.75%, followed by an increase of 1.4% in August 2018, then a further increase of 1.2% in August 2019, then 2.75% effective in August 2021, and that increase, Mr. Speaker, was higher than the prevailing rate of inflation, followed by an increase of 4.1% in August 2023, and today we are passing our 6th increase since 2017 of 2.4%. In every case in which this government has increased benefits for our seniors, the increase has been in line with or exceeded the rate of inflation. So, Mr. Speaker, let's compare the records. 7 years and 6 pension increases keeping up with inflation under the Progressive Labor Party, or 5 years and 1 increase under the One Bermuda Alliance, where Bermuda's seniors fell behind. Mr. Speaker, I think that the record alone demonstrates which party in this honorable House looks out for our seniors, and that is this Progressive Labor Party government. Mr. Speaker, the 2024 increase in benefits would normally be accompanied by a corresponding increase in contributions by an actuarially recommended rate of 2.5% above the benefits rates increase. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that contributions were last increased in August 2018 by 4.2%. Honorable members will recall that in the 2018 throne speech, the government announced that Bermuda's social insurance system will be changed from a fixed rate contribution to one based on percentage of income. Therefore, it is proposed that contribution increases will be incorporated into proposed changes of the framework. It has been regularly discussed that the CPF and PSSF pensions are underfunded and will run out of assets if reforms are not undertaken. This means for many Bermudians, the promised benefits will not be there unless we take action. And, Mr. Speaker, this government is taking that action. Mr. Speaker, I note the important work done over the last few years by the Pension Reform Committee. This committee includes officials from the Ministry of Finance, the Public Funds Investment Corporation, the Public Funds Investment Committee, assisted by consultants McKinsey & Company and TELUS Health, who are actuaries, formerly LifeWorks, which have been assessing the current state of PSSF and the CPF while evaluating options to address the government pension funds. Mr. Speaker, as shared in this year's budget statement, that work is nearing completion, and it is expected that legislation will be tabled in this honorable House in the next session of Parliament to put the Public Service Superannuation Fund on a sustainable footing. As has been stated previously in this brief and inside and outside of this honorable House, the shift to a percentage income of contribution model for the contributory pension fund is consistent with the overwhelming majority of Tier 1 pension systems globally. Based on results of continued actuarial analysis, the Pension Reform Committee has put forth options to achieve a path to pension sustainability for the contributory pension fund. These options, combined with supplementary funding from future tax revenues, will ensure that the contributory pension fund will be sustainable for the future. Mr. Speaker, while contribution rates were last increased in 2018 by 4.2%, the Ministry of Finance has considered the position of the CPF, and it is anticipated that the fund can withstand a further year's delay in contribution increases. However, Mr. Speaker, and this is an important point to note, if reforms are not implemented in 2025, it will be prudent, and the Ministry of Finance will increase contributions in August of 2025 with a further increase for seniors' benefits to match inflation next year. Mr. Speaker, as of March 31st, 2024, the fund had net assets of over $2.25 billion, representing approximately 10 times the value of benefits paid in this fiscal year. The effect of this, the CPF received no further contributions. It could still continue to pay out pensions at the prevailing rate for almost 12 years. However, the reality is that contributions will continue through that time and will be increased from time to time. Consequently, prudent investment of the pension fund assets is an important factor in the fund's financial position. In this regard, the government's sound investment strategy for pension fund assets has achieved good results. As of March 31st, 2024, the contributory pension fund investment stood at $2.1 billion. The nominal rate of return for 10 years preceding the March 31st, 2024 date has been 5.6%. Mr. Speaker, as evidenced in the 2020 actuarial report tabled in this honorable House in February 2022, the viability of the fund in the short to medium term is good, with the fund being positive for the next 21 years until 2044. However, recognize the long-term challenges with pensions generally, the ministry will continue to closely monitor the performance of its fund. It should also be noted that the funding policy of the fund is not based on full actuarial funding, but on sustainable funding. That is, contributions plus investment income should cover benefits and administrative expenses on an annual basis while the fund builds up sufficient reserves to cover several years of benefits and expenses to withstand future adverse circumstances. Mr. Speaker, despite the encouraging short to medium-term outlook on the fund, what is evident from the latest actuarial review is that Bermuda, like most of the development world, is faced with challenges associated with an aging population. The increase of our seniors will place a greater strain on the country's pension system, and that, Mr. Speaker, is why it is important to expand the working population, which you can only do by expanding jobs, which you do with sound economic management investment, and as we've heard in previous statements earlier and in other reports from ministers, including the Minister of Economy and Labor, this government is doing after we have brought this country through a once-in-a-century pandemic. However, Mr. Speaker, taking care of seniors is this Progressive Labor Party government's priority, which is demonstrating our continued commitment to ensure they have the resources they need for increased pensions and social insurance benefits. Mr. Speaker, this government will continue to strike the right balance between social and fiscal responsibility and support for our seniors. In closing, I wish to again assure members, and more importantly, current and future pensioners, that this government recognizes the challenges that they face. We are committed to continue to increase pensions by the rate of inflation, and we will enact the reforms necessary to ensure that the fund will be there for the future to support younger persons who are not yet retired as they do retire. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Does any other member wish to speak? We recognize the opposition leader. Opposition leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to the listening audience and my colleagues. Yes, we in the opposition support increasing the pensions contribution. We've received equally a number of inquiries into this matter, and we are in fact glad to see it. However, we would like to go through some of the components that are leading to the circumstances we're seeing concerning aging population, as well as how long the funds will last, and our efforts, especially our short-term to medium-term efforts to remediate the outstanding issues. Most especially, we'd like to start about the progress on the reform. The Honorable Premier spoke to the progress that some progress had taken place, but my understanding was that that was in relation to the superannuation fund. And so if he could split the difference, so to speak, and speak to the contributory pension fund instead of superannuation. Also, we would also like to know the specific dates when he anticipates implementing reforms for the CPF specifically, as well as he's committed to creating legislation and bringing that legislation to the next sitting of the House or next session. And I would like the Premier to commit publicly or commit to a public consultation before that legislation reaches the House. Mr. Speaker, we are fairly accustomed to legislation arriving quite abruptly into the House, and so we would like to get the public's opinion on the proposed course of action. Also, Mr. Speaker, we would like to see the latest actuarial report relating to the CPF, and would the Honorable Premier be able to commit to when that will take place? We are mindful that there are several changes to be made, and so we are looking forward to debating those changes so that we can create a sustainable CPF going forward. Some other questions, Mr. Speaker, I'd be interested in is maintaining the population as it relates to ratepayers staying in Bermuda and not moving overseas. If the government, how confident the government is about the ratepayers staying in Bermuda, and what, if any, actions can be taken in relation to the CPF reform or project to encourage people to stay in Bermuda. Further, I think that not making the annual contribution, we don't agree with that idea. We think that's a bad precedent to set in this circumstance. We would be interested to know what is the current deficit as it relates to the contributions to the CPF and payouts, as well as what impacts, if any, the missing contribution will have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Opposition Leader. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? Any other? Minister Furbett, Tanae Furbett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we are in this House, we are policymakers and we are legislators. And it becomes apparently important that our people in our country understand that when it comes to legislation such as this. And so with this piece of legislation, we are looking to assist, I think of three words: our seniors, our precious seniors, our sacred seniors. I think of contribution, and I think of thankfulness. And I say thankfulness, Mr. Speaker, because one of the number one comments that I get from seniors is, thank you so much for what you're doing for us seniors. Can I repeat that? They say, thank you very much for what this government is doing for our seniors. And they say that because of such legislation like this. We know with our cost of living that every penny counts. Mr. Speaker, have you ever found $20 on the ground when you've been walking, and what that feels like?
$20.
When you had it before?
Find that, Eric.
Or you go in your pant pocket and you reach in and you pull out something and it's $20, $50 that you didn't realize was in there? Yeah, it's a good feeling. And so whatever money change that we can contribute to our seniors, this has been calculated to the rate of inflation. Our seniors are definitely happy about. I even had a senior come to me who is experiencing dementia, and she said, ma'am, what isn't government giving us a pension? And I said, ma'am, you get a pension every month. And I said, you must be talking about the increase that you're going to be getting every year. And she says, yes, yes, yes. I read in the paper that about this increase. When is that coming? Because that's the second question that I get. When does the pension increase come into effect? And I believe it's coming into effect October this year. But our seniors have that to look forward to. Our seniors have a government who is looking out for the best interests of their seniors. Hence the title of the ministry, Youth, Social Development, and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, why is this important? It's important because many of our seniors are on fixed pensions. And if you have not planned for a pension other than, income other than your fixed pension, then you will not be able to keep up with the cost of living when these rates increase. And so every penny counts, Mr. Speaker. And our seniors are so very grateful for this. When I think of that word contribution, when you can use a little extra money for food, when you can use a little extra money to pay your bills, when you can use a little extra money for medication or a copay to a physician, when you can use a little extra money for a gift for yourself, or use a little extra money for a gift for your grandchild, Mr. Speaker, that matters. And that is a contribution that any senior who will benefit from this increase in pension will get to contribute back to themselves and to our community. Mr. Speaker, again, I just want to stand to my feet. I'm standing to my feet in support of this piece of legislation. And we want all of our seniors to know that this is a government who cares about our seniors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Does any other member? MP Simmons Wade, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Speaker and the listening audience.
Morning.
I stand here to say that I significantly support this legislation that increases pensions at the rate to match the rate of inflation. We are a government that listens. We are a government that cares for our seniors. Many of our seniors only receive a pension and no other regular income. This pension affords them to access to services that they need, basic needs in some cases. It also, for seniors who are living with their families, it also gives them an opportunity to contribute to their households. We have many intergenerational families. These pensions also assist with long-term care. For individuals that go into long-term care, their pensions are taken along with financial assistance or any family's contribution to pay for their long-term care. This income contributes to their dignity and empowerment. We are a government that is preparing for the global aging population. We continue to support seniors. People within the community, clubs, organizations, the third sectors also make a significant contribution to our seniors. Our government is truly, truly preparing for an aging population. Within the next 10 to 15 years, 33% of our population will be seniors. It's actually hard to imagine that we are going to have a population who are over the age of 65. Many of us sitting in this room fit into that category. I don't want to call names, but put your hands up and we'll know who you are. I am very proud to be a part of a government that puts seniors up front and center when they talk about the legislation. I am proud to be a part of this government that remains committed to our seniors to ensure that they live with dignity and also have quality care in their last years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP Smith. Deputy Speaker, would you like to
Thank,
make a
thank,
contribution
thank
at
you,
this
Mr.
time?
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I applaud this government for giving our seniors increases every year. Mr. Speaker, many folks don't realize that many people, 83, 85, this is the only pension they get because the company pensions and that only came into effect in 2000. And if you're 60, 65 then, this is the only thing you get. And for anyone to even question this, they need to just think a bit, think about those older folks, because those older folks, they don't benefit like most people that are sitting here today, because they'll get the benefits of the pension that came to effect in 2000. Even the superannuation at one time was only to the civil servants. Blue collar workers they only got put on in the 70s, and the government backdated it, right? But this was discriminatory to blue collar workers. That superannuation was put in by civil servants, and at one time most of the civil servants came from England. That's who it was put in for. And since which most of the civil servants today are a little darker than me, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, one has to realize that our seniors today, they have health challenges in terms of paying for medical services. I wish that we would have a national plan that would cover my seniors 100%, but we're not there yet. And so anything that we can do, increases to these folks, is appreciated by them. We applaud it, because the maximum pension one would get today is probably about $1,700, low of that. If you put the 2,178 contributions, that's like 40 something years of working in order to get the maximum benefit. And so, but our seniors are not getting that, because a one that is 85, they're getting the rate. That rate was based on, at that time, when they're 65, 20 years ago. So if that rate then was $500 a month, that's the rate. It only increases the CPI each year, based on that rate, as opposed to someone that retires today, they'll get the $1,700, maybe $1,800 a month. So people got to understand that our seniors are not getting even the $1,700 that I quote. And even that will not sustain them in today's world, Mr. Speaker. Because people must realize that in those days, many of our female did not work. They couldn't work. They had 8, 10 children. They didn't look after those children. But there is in the act a non-contributory pension. And it's my belief the non-contributory pension was put there for those working mothers, not working mothers, those mothers that had to stay home and look after those children, and then they look after the grandchildren. It was put there for the physically challenged. That's what it was put there for, Mr. Speaker. And that amount is not as much as the contributory pension, Mr. Speaker. So before we get start asking for reports and all this, let's think about the history. I would forgo those reports based on the bad history that our seniors had to go through. So the increase that this government is putting in place, I applaud it, and Premier and Financial Minister David Barrett continue to do that, take care of our seniors. Because our seniors vote also, they breathe like me and you, and they require food, medical care like all of us. So I applaud them, I stand on their shoulders, because without their fight, many of us won't be here today. We won't enjoy all this stuff that's out there today. It's because of them that we enjoy the standard of life that we have today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy. Is there any other member? Mr. Hayward?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I applaud the movement from the Minister of Finance to increase the pension of our seniors. This is not just simply an increase in pension. This is an investment into our seniors. This is alignment with the core values of the Progressive Labor Party, the social justice values of the Progressive Labor Party, ensuring that our seniors age in dignity and they have the necessary security in retirement. As the Honorable Member MP Burgess stated, our seniors have contributed in the workforce, and their contributions have made Bermuda the gem that it is today. And so it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that we support our seniors who are aging in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, this is not the only way in which we support our seniors. Thousands of seniors benefit from our social protections through financial assistance. We pay over $13 million in rent annually. We pay over $7 million in nursing home fees. Roughly around $3 million in rest home fees. And over $10 million in supporting insurance payments for our seniors. This is a government that cares about our seniors, and we have demonstrated it. Year over year, we have provided our seniors with increases. This whole notion of show us the actuarial statements. Every fund has an actuarial end date. What we should be focused on is the sustainability of the fund. And that is what our priority would actually be focused on. The stability of the fund to ensure our seniors continue to receive an income while they age in Bermuda. For some of our seniors, this is their only income. This is the only means of disposable income.
And as the cost of living increases in Bermuda, our seniors are negatively impacted. And as a result, it is the responsibility of the government to continue to progress those payments so that they can keep up with the cost of living and their purchasing power can be maintained. This is also about addressing inequalities in our society, the growing gaps between the rich and the poor. And it's mechanisms like this, when we increase pensions, help to reduce those inequalities. When we extend the benefits that we provide for financial assistance, it helps to reduce those inequalities. It allows for our seniors to age in a decent and dignified manner. This is a symbol of government recognizing the value of our seniors and ensuring we do all that we can to support our seniors while they age in Bermuda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Is there any other junior minister sworn?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, ever so briefly, I have to declare my interest. I've actually exceeded the mandatory age, and I am now officially a senior for, and as of a week from today, 2 years. And as you become a senior, initially some of us are in denial, but as time ticks on, you come to certainly appreciate the thought process of other seniors. And I'd like to associate the honorable member from Warwick with that comment. The one thing that I can say in favor of our government is that, and you heard persons chirping away when a increase is provided every year. And I've lived long enough to know that 1 year adds up to 2 years, and 2 into 3, and 3 into 10 very quickly. And had this government not seen it necessary to have incremental increases on a continuous basis, where would we be in the 7 years of PLP government in this term, following on from the mindset of the One Bermuda Alliance, whose mindset from finance were telling seniors money doesn't grow on trees? And that's a stark contrast in the mindset that had we followed that mindset, seniors would not have probably received a pension increase in about 10 years. And so all we would have been trying to do is to play catch up with that against the backdrop of the same mindset from the persons who would have pushed that can down the road. So to be able to put seniors first and be able to say, yes, you're getting an increase this year. You got one last year. You got one the year before. You got one the year before that. You got one the year before that. Puts to bed the argument of having no increases for 10 years. And then someone thinks that you're looking for, some special gift or grant when they decide to give a grant to play catch up. We're not entering into that ball game because we don't look at seniors that way. In fact, it's consistent because you had the same mindset permeating in education when they told students and cut the scholarships for students and the like. And thankfully, the Minister of Education today took a different mindset. So that mindset is what you have to be careful of in this silly season we're in. Because don't let no one fool you. That mindset hasn't gone away. No matter how much glossy icing someone might put over it, no matter how well-sounding words they might put on it, well, you have to go back to the core of your actions, speak louder than your words. And you will be held accountable for the actions, just like we will be for ours. You know, in this country, someone would say, what's an incremental increase worth? Well, it's worth a lot if you're getting nothing, if you've been getting nothing. And so we've been continually making sure that seniors are trying to be kept pace. But what are we fighting against? We're fighting against merchants that have no type of disposition otherwise than to make sure that the bottom line and profits prevail. Increases in basic items that people say is necessary to eat healthy in Bermuda. We have the highest rates of diabetes in probably per capita in the world. So if you try to eat to reverse that, persons are going to put those prices up exponentially. You know, persons getting those increases are fighting against that, and many people are guarding against. And I glory in the spirit of those particular companies that are making pharmaceutical goods available at a lower price. Mr. Speaker, I just want to close by saying that I'm appreciative of the government for adopting a mindset that's obviously contrary to the mindset that existed prior to us regaining the government in 2017. And I thank the Premier and the Premier and Finance Minister. There have been a couple in our lifetime, you know, contrary to what public opinion would have you believe, that sees it necessary to increase in favor of seniors. And I wouldn't bark against it being even more, but I'm thankful for what we're receiving. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? None other? Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I get to my particular remarks, I want to thank colleagues on this side who have spoke in support of this particular measure today. And I guess I will thank the opposition for their half-hearted support, because they support one aspect, but they don't support another. And I think that it's important that the country knows and understands what that means, Mr. Speaker, because this government is laser focused on the protection of working people in this country. That, Mr. Speaker, is the reason why we reduce payroll taxes to workers to their lowest level in history after the One Bermuda Alliance government raised it to their highest level in history. This is an important point, Mr. Speaker. You may say, why am I talking about that? How does it tie into this? This is important because it is important that the public recognize that the reason why we have committed to reforms is because it is fundamentally unfair that the cashier working at a retail operation is paying the same amount into the contributory pension fund as the owner of that operation, who may be taking home 10 times as much money. This is a question of fairness. As I said when I spoken on this, it is like Bermuda is really another world, because nowhere else in the world still does this. Many other countries did do it, and it is. So I will accept the responsibility that this has not yet been changed. But what I will not do is I will not increase the burdens on working people in this country, as the One Bermuda Alliance has just proposed to do. That's what they mean when they say they do not support us not increasing contributions. What they would do is increase taxes on working people.
Point of order. I think the honorable premier, is definitely you're misleading the House. I don't know where he's going with that one. I think we outlined our support, and misleading the House, outline our point of support, and then put a set of questions to the premier. I'd be thankful if he can get back to that.
Premier,
Mi-
the member indicated you're misleading the House when you tied the other end. Yes, they supported part, but you're giving reasons why, your opinion why they didn't.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. I am not misleading the House, and I will not take directions from the opposition leader on the statements that I make inside of this space, the only space with you. What he said, Mr. Speaker, in his comments was he does not support us not increasing contributions by the actually approved rate. That's what he said. He may not understand what that means, and that is the reason why I'm explaining to the country what that means. The honorable leader of the opposition wants to increase the burdens on working people. That's what it means, Mr. Speaker. That is the implication of what he says. And see, the thing is, the One Bermuda Alliance sometimes just makes these policy pronouncements without recognizing the impact that it has on working people of this country, Mr. Speaker. Oh, he's talking about just getting to it. Don't worry. I won't get into the chirping, Mr. Speaker. I won't get into it because here's the thing. That honorable member certainly does not want to compare records, because records when it comes to pensions in this country are clear. The last time they had the reins, Mr. Speaker, the only increase they gave was right before an election. The only one, whereas every single year, this government continues to make sure we keep rate with the rate of inflation. You know why, Mr. Speaker? You know why? Because when we tell the public in our platform that we are going to do this, when we tell our seniors in our platform that their pensions will not fall behind the rate of inflation, it is incumbent on the government to deliver on that promise, and that is what we're doing. So they may not like the implications of the policy position that they advocate for, but that is the reality, Mr. Speaker. They would increase social insurance contributions, which means that working people in this country would have less take-home pay in their pocket. That is the difference, Mr. Speaker. And that, Mr. Speaker, is why it is not a part of our policy. Very simple. It is a question of what is your ethos. If your ethos is taking care of working people, you will recognize the impacts of your decisions on working people, Mr. Speaker. So now, Mr. Speaker, let me go to the questions. See, Mr. Speaker, they are so upset. They are so upset that we came here, Mr. Speaker, and delivered a budget surplus while they've been spending their time talking about where is all this money coming from. But let me go, Mr. Speaker. So let me go to the questions that the Honorable Opposition Leader proposed with regards to reforms. He had mentioned that, CPF and PSF are separate, etc. And I mentioned the thing. I just mentioned the PSF for the brief for knowledge of the public. The PSF has already gone to the unions. There's one further union brief that is needed. And then there is the work to make sure that we bring this. The cabinet has already approved the proposed changes. We're going through the consultation process with our union partners, who are the ones that are impacted, before those matters are brought to this honorable House. In regards to the contributory pension fund, the honorable member asked for the timeline for those particular changes, and also the question as to whether or not those matters will go out to consultation. The second answer is, of course, they will go out to consultation. They will go out to consultation because this is a change that will affect everyone. It will affect people who are in work, but it will also affect employers who are the persons who also match contributory pension fund benefits. And it is vitally important that we recognize the impact on employers as well. And so the points, I've already made the points in regarding the increase in contributions, and I've stated my specifics. The honorable member has asked for the specific dates for reforms. What I would say is that the time that the consultation will happen will be in 2025 on the CPF. We'll do the CPF reforms in consultation following the implementation of the Public Service Superannuation Fund reforms. The Public Service Superannuation Fund reforms are, of course, important as they are charged in the consolidated fund, and they're the most important ones that we need to make sure that we deal with, Mr. Speaker. The question was when the next actuarial report is due. It should be noted the actuarial report is due every 3 years. The last one was tabled in this House in 2022, so they should expect one to come in 2025, but it may come earlier than 2025, as I've just been informed by the Director of Social Insurance. That report has been received in the last 2 months, and we'll be able to go ahead, prepare it for cabinet review, and then bring it to the legislature. So we'll be either in November or the next time in the budget session, Mr. Speaker. And then there was a difference insofar as difference of the tax on working people that the honorable opposition leader has spoken about, and that difference would be $5.7 million of taxes, and that is $5.7 million that we are not taking from the working people of this country, Mr. Speaker. It is important to note that the result of the investments on the fund this year, Mr. Speaker, the returns on our total investments were 10.8% last year. And when you have the 10.8%, of course, it helps to make sure you build up the fund. So despite the fact that the fund does have more payouts than it does receive, we have to make sure we take into account the investment income, which is why the fund maintains and remains on a positive balance. Investments, however, cannot carry us over the long term. There is going to be a need for the reforms, and everyone knows what the reforms of pensions are. They're either you change the amount of contributions that come to the system by changing it to a percentage basis where those persons who can afford to pay more do pay more, like every other system in the world. That will be able to stabilize the funds, Mr. Speaker. But it is a difficult challenge. And the one thing that we want to do is to make sure that we are not compounding challenges on employers, as the one thing that this government recognizes is that if you do not have employment in the economy, you're not going to have tax revenues in the economy. And that is the reason why we're taking a fair and balanced approach. But it is important to note that the fund is not going down. The fund is maintaining due to the investment income of which the fund is earning. I believe those are all the answers to the questions, Mr. Speaker. And with that, noting that this government will not increase the burdens on working people, I move that the said draft order be approved and that a suitable message be sent to Her Excellency the Governor.
Thank you. Mr. Premier, members, that brings to a close. The appropriate order will be sent. So we thank you for your contributions to that matter this morning, members. We'll now move on to the second item on the order paper, which is the second reading of the National Pension Scheme Occupational Pension Amendment Act 2024 in the name of the Junior Minister of Finance. Junior Minister.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill entitled the National Pension Scheme Occupational Pensions Amendment Act 2024 be now read the second time.
Are there any objections? There are none. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to provide for the consideration of this honorable House the bill entitled the National Pension Scheme Occupational Pensions Amendment Act 2024. Honorable members will be aware that the National Pension Scheme Occupational Pensions Act 1998 provides for the establishment administration, and regulation of the private sector occupational pension plans in Bermuda. The act became operational on the 1st of January 2000, and over the years, a number of amendments to the act and regulations have been introduced to provide for various matters. Mr. Speaker, since 2010, the government has provided plan members and those 65 and older additional access to their pension funds, which over the years have provided both timely and substantial financial support. In particular, the temporary COVID refunds totaling $243 million, the lump sum refunds totaling $58 million, the financial hardship refunds totaling $31 million, and small pensions refunds totaling $12 million. Now, Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes to amend the act further to allow individuals the ability to use a portion of their private pension savings towards the purchase of their first home. This was an election promise made in 2020, and I am proud to say it is a promise made and a promise kept. Mr. Speaker, home ownership is not just a personal achievement. It strengthens our communities and supports our economy. It gives individuals and families a sense of stability and security and helps them to build equity for future generations. Also, as Bermuda's real estate market over the years has shown steady increases in property values, home ownership is not just shelter, it can be a wealth building tool. Another key feature to this bill is that it allows individuals to withdraw pension funds not only for their own first home, but also for the home of a spouse or child. This increases accessibility and empowers families to support each other in securing property, ensuring the next generation steps onto the property ladder. Mr. Speaker, the bill then provides clear withdrawal limits as well. As individuals between the ages of 18 and 45 can withdraw up to 30% of their pension balance, while those between the ages of 46 and 64 can withdraw up to 15%. This tiered approach recognizes the fact that as a person gets older to retirement, the need to preserve their pension account increases. And therefore, this approach ensures a balance between supporting home ownership and protecting retirement security. Mr. Speaker, I also feel it is incumbent to illustrate the impact of this government's initiatives aimed toward building a nation of owners. I would like to highlight that currently, if a Bermudian wishes to purchase a $600,000 home, they would typically need to provide a 20% down payment, which is $120,000. However, under the government's mortgage guarantee program, this requirement is reduced to 10%, which then brings the down payment to $60,000. Now, with this amendment, given the average pension balance of a 35-year-old in Bermuda, a young Bermudian in their 30s can withdraw up to 30% of their pension and therefore would only need approximately $40,000 in cash, compared to the original $120,000 requirement. That is an $80,000 reduction. Mr. Speaker, while we are proud to help make home ownership more accessible, this government recognizes that purchasing a home still requires discipline, sacrifice, a plan, and a budget. This government is committed to creating pathways to ownership, but the journey's success is up to each individual. Owning a home is a long-term commitment, and through financial responsibility, Bermudians can secure not only a home, but their family's financial future as well. Mr. Speaker, I should also mention that this proposed initiative is not unique to Bermuda, as many countries around the world provide their citizens with the option to use a portion of their pension savings for home ownership. A standout example is Singapore, where the government similarly allows citizens to use their pension savings to finance the purchase of their homes. And as a result of this policy, Singapore has one of the highest home ownership in the world, with over 90% of its population owning their homes. By leveraging pension savings, Singapore has transformed home ownership from a distant dream to a reality for many of its residents. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we understand and acknowledge the concerns some have expressed related to the potential impact of pension withdrawals on future retirement benefits. In response, I want to assure the public that the government, in collaboration with the Pension Commission and industry stakeholders, will work to ensure all applicants are informed of potential risks and ways to mitigate those risks prior to them ultimately making a decision. It is also critical to emphasize that this initiative is entirely voluntary. Individuals are free to leave their pensions intact should they wish to. We are simply providing Bermudians with the flexibility to make choices that suit their personal financial circumstances. Mr. Speaker, we should not overlook the fact that hardship withdrawals already exist for individuals facing significant difficulties, such as rent arrears and mortgage defaults, medical expenses, educational purposes, and funeral costs. This new option is simply an expansion of an existing provision, offering even greater flexibility for Bermudians to decide how best to manage their money. The bill also proposes to provide the Minister of Finance with the power to issue regulations that will expand the availability of domestic investments for plan members to voluntarily invest a small portion of their pension fund in. The specific regulations will be brought to this honorable House after further consultation with the Pension Commission and pension industry representatives. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to note that applicants are not required to live in the property they purchase using these funds. Successful applicants can choose to rent the property out, thereby presenting an opportunity to generate income to support their mortgage payments. Finally, as I mentioned last week, due to the very nature of the plan, this initiative will not be available to individuals on defined benefit pension plans. And so, Mr. Speaker, as I close, I'd like to thank those within the Pension Commission and the team at the Ministry of Finance for their efforts. I'd also like to thank our local approved pension administrators for working with the government on not just this initiative, but preparing on a much broader scale to help the people of Bermuda become retirement ready. This initiative is more than just a financial option. It is a stepping stone to building stronger families, secure future, and a more resilient Bermuda. By giving Bermudians the flexibility and opportunity to invest in their own homes, we are not just helping them achieve a lifelong dream, we are creating a nation of proud homeowners. Together, we are ensuring that more Bermudians can take pride in the roofs over their heads and the wealth they build for future generations to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Junior Minister. Does any other member, opposition leader? You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that we are speaking about the utility of pensions and changing what can be allowed to happen with pensions in Bermuda, I think it's worth reflecting on the role of pensions in an aging population. Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear that the role of pensions in Bermuda to date is going to be to guarantee income. We are living in a fast-changing world with the cost of living only ever going up. And as it stands right now, the role of pension serves to, again, guarantee income for the future. It serves to reduce financial stress, Mr. Speaker. As we all know, those of us who are going into those pension meetings with our plan administrators who are explaining to us how retirement works, we're all well aware that that to retire will require careful negotiation of a number of different pension schemes, including our social insurance, which we spoke about earlier today in this honorable House. Guaranteed income serves to reduce financial stress for us going forward into the future, where we know, again, our cost of living is only going to increase. Outliving our savings, Mr. Speaker, part of the network that provides for our retirement, our safe retirement, is our individual savings. So it's not just the social insurance or contributory pension fund. It's not just the private placement or private pensions. It's also our savings, Mr. Speaker, that adds towards how we'll be able to live in the future. It serves to protect us against inflation, Mr. Speaker. Again, a variable that we cannot reliably predict ourselves and the impact it will have on us. And most especially, Mr. Speaker, these private pensions provide for less reliance on the social insurance. We've already heard that social insurance is in a state that requires reform and cannot be sustained in its current format. So until that time when the Honorable Premier brings those reforms to this House, we can not rely on that to be there. Mr. Speaker, I'd also speak to our aging population because I think this is actually quite key. We're well aware that we need some 8,000 additional workers. The Aging Population Report has, at a minimum, the Aging Population Report has set out that there is a strong correlation between economic growth and the structure of our labor force. It also sets out that we're anticipating a GDP decline unless we deal with this outstanding issue. Our old age dependency will be higher than the OECD average. And at this point, we're well aware of the challenges we're facing. All of us who are canvassing are on the doors on a regular basis, and we hear about how pension already doesn't pay for bills, health insurance, etc., groceries, medications, etc. So much so that, as the Honorable Minister for Economy and Labor said in an earlier contribution, the majority of our folks on financial assistance, our awardees, are in fact pensioners. So we are going into a tough time to be a senior in Bermuda, and it's already hard. So one of the ideas that has been proposed, or this legislation proposes, that we would enable a person applicant or their husband or wife or their son or daughter to access some of that contributions to purchase a house. Mr. Speaker, the values of properties in Bermuda are astronomical. Buying a house at some $400,000 or $600,000 is a dream that most of us look for, but very few of us find. It is exceptionally difficult at this point in time to imagine how accessing these funds in this day will actually make our future safer. It's an incredible risk, Mr. Speaker, that will increase the vulnerability of our population, our aging population. What we're proposing here is nothing less than borrowing from the future and hoping that it all works out. That's not what's going to happen, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are putting our vulnerable population even more at risk. We are creating domestic situations for seniors. This is not going to pan out well for us going forward in Bermuda. Those contributions are not enough today. They will certainly not be enough tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, to that end, we cannot support the idea of raiding people's pension funds. To that end, Mr. Speaker, we get completely against this. We find it void of all worth and will object to it going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Opposition Leader. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? Any other member? MP Dickerson?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak to this legislation as a finance professional with almost 3 decades of industry experience. This experience includes having served for 3 years as Bermuda's Minister of Finance, having worked for 11 years as an investment banker in New York and in London, and having worked for almost 12 years as a senior leader in one of Bermuda's community and commercial banks, having run group-wide businesses for that organization. I rise to speak on this legislation as a Bermudian with deep concerns about the sustainability of our retirement savings regime, especially in light of the observations that are being made in other jurisdictions around this very same issue. Mr. Speaker, there may be disagreement in this room around this initiative, but I can certainly assure folks that there's probably unanimity in thought around members in this honorable House that we all broadly support home ownership in Bermuda. We can also agree that we are supportive of people having full participation in efforts to save for their retirements. It goes without saying that there is great pride to be had in owning a piece of the rock and to be able to sustain yourself financially throughout your retirement. And we all want to strongly support efforts to achieve both. It has often been said that when the U.S. sneezes, Bermuda catches a cold. At a series of recent financial services conferences that I attended, the pension gap in the United States has been estimated at approximately $1 trillion annually. Yes, $1 trillion. What does that mean in simple terms? It means the difference between what is needed to fund retirements versus what is available to fund those retirements. It's called the pension gap, and it represents $1 trillion annually. The full number is $54 trillion. Mr. Speaker, this problem has arisen as a result of 2 primary factors. 1, people are not saving enough for their pensions. And 2, people are living longer in retirement. Mr. Speaker, I don't know the size of Bermuda's pension gap, but I do know that our contributory pension fund, our public service superannuation fund, our ministers, members of the legislature fund are all underfunded, and by a significant amount. And absent long past due reforms in these plans, the obligation of making up for those increasing shortfalls could fall on the government and ultimately the taxpayer. I also know that defined contribution plans became more prevalent in the United States in the 1970s. And Bermuda's own defined contribution legislation became operable in 2000, early 2000s. So the United States has an estimated 25-year head start on us with respect to these types of plans. And they have $1 trillion pension gap. Accepting that we have a smaller population, our pension gap in absolute terms will be much smaller. But what does much smaller mean? I don't know at this moment and would rather not speculate. I would suggest that the Ministry of Finance, the Pension Commission, and pension fund administrators work to identify strategies to figure out the size of the gap and strategies to close it. I also unequivocally take the view that we can ill afford to be engaging in policy decisions that are designed to allow individuals to reduce their pension balances before their retirement ages. Instead, we should be doing more to strongly encourage them to contribute more. I do note the observation made about Singapore, and I would say this: we all could do more to be like Singapore. Singapore has a national savings rate of approximately 40 to 50% of GDP. The United States' number is around 17 to 20% of GDP. While I haven't checked to see the size of Singapore's pension gap, I would argue that it's vastly smaller than others. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big supporter of home ownership and an equally big supporter of retirement savings. Notwithstanding my strong support for home ownership and retirement savings, I have found it difficult to support this legislation, which allows people to tap into their retirement savings to aid in fulfilling their dreams of making a down payment to buy a home. This lack of support is based largely on the fundamental characteristics of the current Bermuda defined contribution industry. We have relatively low plan balances, and that will make self-sustainability in retirement very difficult, if not impossible, for many. Mr. Speaker, there's a concept, a powerful concept in finance called compounding of interest, or the compounding effect. Compounding of interest is the process where interest is earned not only on the initial amount of money invested, but also on any interest that already has been added to the amount invested. This creates a snowball effect, where interest is continually earned on the ever-increasing balance. Compounding of interest is important to savers because it accelerates wealth growth. The longer the money is invested, the more significant the growth, even if interest rates are relatively modest. Time matters. Compounding works best over a long period of time. The earlier you start investing, the more you benefit from compounding. Even small investments can grow substantially over time due to compounding. Compounding is key to retirement savings. It is essential to retirement savings. By contributing regularly to a retirement account, even modest amounts, the interest earned compounds over the years, creating substantial savings for retirement. Of course, compounding also has some downsides if you're in debt, if you don't pay your credit cards off in full. The interest on those debts accrues, leading to larger balances. The compounding of interest is one of the primary reasons why we want people to start saving for their retirements early and for them to make consistent contributions. The compounding of interest is important because it maximizes returns on savings and investments over time, making it a crucial factor in wealth building and financial planning. The earlier and more consistently one takes advantage of it, the greater the benefit. For those who take capital out of their retirement savings, they lose the power of compounding on that capital, which makes them worse off in the long run. One of the biggest contributors to your pension balance is making the contributions early when they have maximum opportunity to grow over the longest period of time. Mr. Speaker, I can remember an exchange I had in 2018 with a somewhat prominent figure in our local community. The decision had been taken that I would run in the by-election that resulted from the vacancy created by former MP Jeff Barron's resignation. It was thought advisable that my profile be raised in the community. And in that vein, I was scheduled to participate in a forum. At that forum, there was a view expressed that I should take an adversarial approach to discussing Bermuda's financial services industry. I declined to take that approach and instead offered to speak on the benefits of financial literacy. I was told that financial literacy never improved anyone's life. That statement was as wrong then as it is wrong now. Being financially literate has always been important and is even more so now as we navigate a world with increased sophistication in the financial services marketplace. Financial literacy is a key to anyone seeking to gain financial independence, especially as markets continue to innovate and provide products to assist people in their financial matters. Financial literacy involves having the knowledge and understanding of the following components: budgeting, savings, investing, debt management, understanding financial products, understanding taxes, and understanding retirement planning. Mr. Speaker, I've already noted the size of the U.S. pension gap. Japan, a nation with one of the world's highest saving rates, is also facing a pension funding gap. Factors such as an aging population, a low birth rate, and a shrinking workforce have created real challenges for Japan and how it will manage its pension funding gap. The issues of aging population, low birth rate, and the shrinking or slow-growing workforce are not unique to Japan. Bermuda faces similar challenges. Last week, in a ministerial statement entitled "Helping to Build a Nation of Owners," Junior Minister Finance Adams made a powerful point when explaining why the proposed benefits of this legislation would not be available to participants in defined benefits plans. His words were particularly sage as they relayed why such a benefit was not advisable to DB plan participants. His statement, and I quote, "Any deviation, such as a one-time refund, would undermine the stability of these plans and potentially affect the long-term security they are designed to offer." I'm not sure if Junior Minister Adams was aware at the time, but those same sage words are equally applicable to why withdrawals contemplated by this amendment should not be permitted. I believe that there are alternative ways to support the building of a nation of owners where the government can play a pivotal role. This is just not one of them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Lunchtime. Thank you, MP. At this time, we're calling Premier to move us to the 12:30 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this honorable House now adjourn until 2 p.m. for lunch.
Are there any objections to that? There are no objections to that. The House now stands adjourned until 2 p.m.